same way. This one's a little bit more elaborate. This is a big stainless steel basket strainer. The same thing with this gear operator handle. You've got it's fully open right now. You see this little notch right here to the open. Basically, you have to turn this wheel until it gets to the fully closed position, which is right there. Okay. This check valve prevents water from going back down, so you really shouldn't have to touch this. You see how this one's mostly closed? We got it set there, and there's actually a little notch.
Don't touch that one.
Exactly. Don't touch that. To get the center nozzle to go 70 feet high, we want it to be right there. And we want the frequencies on the variable frequency drive to be where they're at.
What if we wanted to go 90 feet?
We don't. We don't. We don't. 70 feet high, even on a calm day, there will be mist overspray. So on one side of the fountain, where that sump pump was, that's typically where the wind catches it, and there could be a little bit of overspray. Now we do have a wind compensation system, and that's up here. 12.9 miles per hour, so that's pretty high right now. They're both activated. Basically, it's a two-stage wind compensation system, and right now it's set at roughly 5 miles an hour and about 7.5 miles per hour. Basically, when this one's activated, when it's solid red like that, the high, medium, and low for the pumps, it cannot go on high. It will only go on medium and low. And when this one's activated, it can't go on medium as well. It can only stay, the nozzles will only go to low setting. That's just to prevent overspray and water loss. And when it's blinking, basically there's time delays, and that's these two little valves at the very bottom, and they're set really high right now, at the maximum. But basically, you saw this one was blinking, and it was getting to that mode where on the time delay, this one's 300 seconds and that one's 100 seconds.
Very critical.
Yeah. Ideally, they should be around 30 seconds.
They are.
They are?
Yeah.
Okay. They're roughly around 30 seconds. So if it doesn't feel 7.5 miles per hour in 30 seconds, this will shut off and it'll allow the nozzles to be at medium height. But right now it will not. They'll all just be at low height right now. They're solid. There's an automatic off-hand switch above it. They're both in automatic, and that's how they should be. Ideally, all of these switches should be in automatic when you leave this place. But you can turn it off if you wanted to see them higher, even though it was real windy, or if you wanted to test it and see what it's like, you could force it to be in the hand position, and it'll activate it. But that's the wind compensation system. What else? Basket strainer?
You want to start cleaning out you want to actually open that, Scott?
Or do we just want to open up, like, show how to, these right here. Basically, you don't need any tools to do this. They just undo, and then once they're loose, they swing down. No fasteners to lose. They just swing back down. You have to do that for all 6 of them. And then when you pull this out, there's no vent on this one, so you got some suction in there, it's like a vacuum. It's a little tough to pull out. But you just pull it straight out. It's all stainless steel with a Lexan cover. You can't hurt it though. It's pretty rugged. But once you pull it out and you pull the strainer straight up, and you'll find out that it only goes back in one way. If you turn it the other way, it will not go in. So you have to clean the debris off of it. It's very fine screening on there. That's why the center nozzle will never clog up as long as that basket strainer is in there. But basically, to tighten them up, you would do it just like tightening a tire. You do on opposite ends, like this. And you just keep rotating it that way until it's tight. And it is suction. The only pressure on this, on the suction side of the pump, is the head pressure of the water in the pool itself. All the pressure from the pump is really on the discharge end. So the likelihood of a leak is very minimal on the suction end on the basket strainer. So you don't have to worry about getting it super, super tight on the suction end. And then make sure that you open this up all the way before you turn the pump back on. This 50 horsepower pump is for 50 horsepower, it is super quiet. purrs like a kitten. I love this pump. Next pump, the spec pump right here. This is a different kind of pump. There's a key. Basically, close the 6-inch, the 4-inch butterfly valve in front of it, and then there's that wrench has a key there, and it unscrews the same, pretty much the same as the Whisper flow pumps as far as concept of taking out the strainer lid. And again, this needs to be done as in most cases about twice a week. In the fall, possibly once a day. In the winter, possibly only once every 2 weeks. It just depends on how many leaves. This time of year, the leaves are already gone, but you see, you still captured quite a few leaves. But that amount of leaves is nothing. That's really not. It wasn't necessary to clean it when it's like this. I mean, even if you had 3 times as many leaves, that is nothing. It won't affect the flow that much. And it'll only go in one way. There's a little tab right here. You're only allowed to go in one way. And again, there's an O-ring there, and then this screw down presses it down. And there's 2 wrenches here. There's another one over there. The unions on here, there's another setting on that same wrench. So you could loosen up these unions. There's another tool right here on this backside. So you got 2 wrenches on this pump. Just open up the butterfly valve on the suction when you're done. And then this one right here. Same with this. Close the suction valve all the way. And then this one has 2 nuts. 2 locking nuts. This one's all bronze. And then this one, well, this one slides out that way. And usually I take 1 nut off completely. I typically take 1 nut completely off so that it's easier to slide it back in later. But these locking nuts eventually unscrew. And there's an O-ring on this, and it's a tight seal, just the same. And on this one, it might be easier to have a flat blade screwdriver to pry it open, because it's got that vacuum lock as well. But same with this. This has a stainless steel basket strainer inside it, and you pull it out, clean it, and it'll only go in back in one particular way. And that's it for this one. And if you forget to close the basket strainer, or if you forget to close the suction valve, it'll quickly remind you, because you typically get your pants wet when the water shoots out to the side, which it almost just did. Okay, that's the pumps and the basket strainers. This is an inline strainer. You should only have to close this one. And with this one, it has a finer, even though there's already a strainer, the outer nozzles, we want to make sure that they don't clog up, and there are special solenoid valves in them, so we want to make sure that they don't clog up. This one's pretty tough too.
Yeah, always.
Use a hammer?
No.
What do you? There is a bit. Okay. To clean this strainer, the best thing to do is to drain it first. That way, when you pull the basket out, you don't have any debris getting by it, because you have floating debris. You want to make sure. So there is a drain that's right.
Yeah, right over there.
Right there. I loosened. Oh, that is. Yeah. This has, I believe it's number 20 stainless steel mesh. It's perforated stainless steel on the outside for rigidity, but then there's a Number 20 wires per inch, stainless steel mesh, to prevent fine particles from clogging those nozzles. Yeah, this is a extra fine strainer. Yeah, this one's not too bad of a shape, but this does have to be. You'll notice if the nozzles are starting to get low in spray height, it's time for this to be cleaned out.
How often are you cleaning that regularly, Scott?
Wait, every time we come, which is
What's
times a
big?
week.
three times a week.
This, because it's so fine and straining, it needs to be cleaned a little more frequently than the basket strainers.
Because the hair.
And then make sure that the discharge valve is wide open. That's just an isolation valve. The throttling valve is actually right there. And you don't really should have to touch this throttling valve. It's at that set point right there for a purpose. But the isolation valves are in front of the basket strainer and in front of the inline strainer, they're just either wide open or fully closed. Okay. All right. Variable frequency drives. You want to talk a little bit about that or not?
I mean, others say you don't want to mess with those.
Yeah. On the variable frequency drives, you really don't want to. Here's one right here. See, it says remote 60 hertz stop. But basically, I mean, you could test them if you wanted to. You could run this pump without the control panel. If you hit the local remote button, it's on local now, forward, this pump is starting. And then stop. And you see how it's ramping up, 30 hertz, 35 hertz, 40, 60 hertz, full speed. And then turn it back off again. That's local, so you can control the variable frequency drives in the local mode, but in remote is where you want to leave them. Automatic and remote is where you want to leave this equipment room, so that the time clocks are controlling the pumps, and all the safety features are controlling the pumps. You don't want the variable frequency drive to control the pump because it bypasses all the safety features in the local mode.
Let's talk about cleaning the filter pumps, the chemicals, and the sand filters.
Okay. Chemical feeders. Basically what we have is a 3 horsepower pump and with 2 discharges. One's going to one sand filter, and one of the chemical feeders is going to the same sand filter, and then the other are paired up with the other side. For the chemical feeders, the pump needs to be off. We also have a basket strainer, just the same as this. Looks almost the same as the small fountain. I believe we have to close the valves right here.
Scott?
Scott, you're used to cleaning these out. One thing is this vent right here. You want to make sure when you open it up, don't open it up too much, because you will mess up the threads on this vent. But you do want to vent that. And that's closed.
That's closed.
Okay?
And then you
Push that down and turn it. And then that's, even though it's got a vent, it still has to pop straight up, and it's got an O-ring right there that makes it really tight inside. But that's where you put, and you can see down in there are some tablets. Chlorine tablets. And that's one of the things that I want to discuss is there are 2 different kinds of tablets. There's dry tablets, chlorine and bromine tablets. We're using chlorine tablets. Once you use one type of tablet, you want to stick with it. You don't want to mix chlorine tablets with bromine tablets. It's lethal. It's really dangerous. The advantages to chlorine tablets, it costs less than bromine. They don't break down under sunlight as quickly as bromine. The disadvantages, it smells stronger than bromine. And what else? For the bromine, it smells stronger. And the bromine doesn't smell as strong, and it doesn't break down under sunlight as quickly. Those are the advantages of bromine. What else?
I mean, how often do you add chemicals?
Yeah.
How do you test the water?
Okay. You saw there was only 4 tablets in there. You can fill that whole thing up with the tablets, and when you turn it on, you want to have this open a little bit, and when you turn on the pump, once you see water spewing out of it, you close it, and you know it's full of water, because you want them to dissolve in the water, the tablets. And so you can fill it up all the way. Having this running with this type of system with a 3 horsepower pump, say those tablets with this canister full will last anywhere from 2 to 5 weeks, somewhere in that neighborhood. It varies. You'll see. You know, you can open that up every couple weeks and see how far down it's gone. But it varies depending on the setting here, how much you have it open, and how much pump you have, and the routing of the tubing. Testing. Parts per million. I mean, there are pH test kits and swimming pool test kits where you can see what the parts per million is in the fountain. And health departments, we don't have to worry about health departments for this fountain because it's not intended for people to get in it. But if it were, you would want to have it between 3 and 10 parts per million. So if you had a pH test kit, and if it were 15 parts per million, that's okay, because we don't have to meet code. So it can be beyond it, and it's not dangerous. You know, it's not affecting the equipment. But you don't really want it to be below 3 parts per million either. It's better to be a little bit in the higher end than the low. That prevents algae growth, but you don't want to overdo it, way overdo it also. Some people see a little sign of algae in the pool, and then they crank these up all the way, and then they forget about the valve, and they just leave it cranked up for weeks on end, and then there's just too much chemical in the water. So you want to make sure that you don't do that either, you know? So make sure you see where the settings are now. That's pretty common. It's not even half. Set at 1. And that's up to what, a 5 degree?
Yeah, 5.
It's up to 5, so 1 or 2. 2's okay also. But it really does not take much chemical for the pool, especially when it runs. We have this one running almost 24 hours a day. It has like a little break. It has a little break in the middle of the night, but it pretty much runs, for the most part, 24 hours a day.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and that could be, I believe Home Depot and Lowe's sells that. And Home Depot and Lowe's also has acid lowering solution. We used to use muriatic acid to lower the pH in there. Now they don't even carry that. I don't know why, but the state of Georgia, it's harder to get muriatic acid in liquid form. But they sell granules now to lower the pH. Again, you want to have the small fountain below 7.6 in pH so that the ionization system will work correctly. So that one's more important to make sure that the pH is down enough. And the caustic solution, that's anything, concrete, sand, dust, all those things typically raise the pH to 8 or even higher. But you want to add the acid to lower the pH between 7.2 and 7.6. It's got to be below 7.6 for the ionization system on the small fountain to work. Okay? This one right here, the valves. There's main suction, that's the big one. How it increases in pipe size from 2 to 4 inch. That's for the main suction. These two are for the skimmer suctions. One of them is for 2 skimmers, for 4 of the 8 skimmers, and the other one's for the other 4 skimmers. And then between the pump and the filter, you can see the throttling valves for the sand filters. And sand filter backwashing. How frequently? I do about once a week.
Yeah.
Roughly once a week.
Yeah, that's what we were doing once a week.
And one of those things varies. There is a pressure gauge. The sight glass on these sand filters, there's a little hole in it, and that is not a defect. They're intended to have a little hole in them. And where the camera is now, that's the ideal place actually to probably change the backwash position because this backflow preventer is in the way. You have to climb over the backflow preventer, so it's probably easier from the landing area over there to change the setting of the backwash valve. Right now they should be on filter, and what we can do, yeah, we can backwash. Let's backwash one of them. You want to backwash one at a time, and you don't have to change any of the settings on the other one when you're backwashing one. So right now it's on filter. It's in 3 different languages, and then we want to put it on backwash. See that there's rinse, winterize, waste, closed, backwash. Change it to backwash right here. And what you'll notice, you see that there's 3 pipes going into that sink drain. You can see the 2 that are coming from the sand filter, but that 3rd one over there, that's coming from that sump pump that's adjacent to the fountain. And that's how you drain the fountain, is through that pipe over there. Okay, so let's turn on the filter pump. Now it's backwashing. You see the sight glass over here. When it's clear, which it already is, you know that you're already done. If it hasn't been backwashed for a week, you'll notice that brown water will be coming out of that. But it's perfectly clear. So after it's clear and you're on backwash, what you do is you put this on rinse mode and you just run that for about 10 seconds. Just for about 10 seconds in rinse mode. And while you're doing this, you are draining the fountain. You're pumping the fountain water down this drain sink. Okay? And then back to filter mode when you're done. And then that's pretty much it. That's the backwashing procedure. Backwashing, we only ran it for about 15-20 seconds, but backwashing typically takes 1 to 4 minutes, depending on how dirty the water is inside the sand filter. But that's it, and then once you're done with one, you turn it off and you do the other one. You never change the valve setting while the pump is running. Always turn the pump off and then come back here and change it. Okay, so that's backwashing.
Is that copper?
Oh yeah, that's the fill manifold. The item on top where that electrical conduit is going to, that's the solenoid valve that replenishes the pool water. If you backwashed for a longer period of time, what will happen is the water level in the pool goes down. That float switch that was behind that brass plate that I pointed out at the beginning of the fountain, when the float switch gets down below the filling position, that solenoid valve will kick on and it'll replenish the pool water, and then it'll shut off once it reaches the correct water depth. And you see the 2 small blue dot valves. The ball valves are open. They're parallel with the pipe, so they're wide open, and that lets the water loop up through that piping. Then there's a bigger ball valve below it, and if you wanted to fill the fountain quicker, manually fill it, you open up that valve, and it fills up the fountain a lot quicker. There's also a hose bib right there and a pressure gauge. And let's see, it should be below 50 psi. I believe it is. It's like 38. I think that's just under 40. Just under 40 psi. That's great. You want to be under 50 psi. You'll see on opposite sides of that solenoid valve there are plugs. You can put a hammer arrestor if when it shuts off, if there was excessive hammering, but there isn't on this fountain. There's a pressure regulator in front of it to prevent excessive pressure to the cold water system. And what else? That's it for the cold water and filling. Now for the touchscreen controls. What we have as far as controls, we discussed the wind compensation panel. This is the main fountain control panel. Over there is the audio panel where we can have music make the fountain change automatically. And this is the lighting panel. This inside it has 10 power supplies and 10 drivers to change the colors of the lights. Inside, I can quickly open it, show you what it looks like. But there's nothing to do in this as as long as the lights are working, all this is power distribution. And these are the 10 drivers, and these are the 10 power supplies, the exhaust fan, and this is the splitter. And that's it for the lighting panel. For the main fountain panel.
Okay, so the first thing I'm going to show here is you see text on here that
Might want to get real close to that.
We show how to set the IP setting for remote access on the iPad app that the concierge has installed on their iPad. So you actually would just touch the top left-hand corner of the screen and hold down finger. Okay, and then OK. Okay, then we go to setting, IP address setting.
Those are the IP addresses right there for remote access.
Yeah, and then the power must have got turned off on this somehow. I'm not sure, because it's supposed to be at this. The correct address is 172.16.31.100. That's the number that I told everyone that the IT guys NAP gave me to use. So I'm not sure what caused it to change there. If sometimes if the power gets turned off for maintenance or something, it'll reset. But this number 172.16.31.100 is the correct address.
Does this have to be set in here?
This is the only place you can set it, yeah, because the remote access won't work.
Can we put that up here so they know?
Sure, yeah.
That's not a bad idea.
Yeah, I know they've got it written down in there. But okay, so hit OK. You can just check to make sure that that's what it's set to now. 172.16.31.100. Okay, and that's what the I won't get into the iPad app, but it's when you turn on the iPad app, you punch that number into the app, and it will connect it as long as you're connected to the Avalon Concierge Wi-Fi. Okay, so we exit here, and now we're to the main screen. So what this says is nothing will operate. If the filter pump turns off, nothing will operate. Everything turns off. Okay, so that will shut down the entire fountain, and the filter pump would only turn off if you have it turned to off, or the time clock is set to off for the filter pump, or if there's a low water level issue, which should not occur because the fill valve should fill the fountain up to the appropriate water level. Now what could happen though is if something happens to that switch, that's why we say you need to test that water level sensor switch once every few weeks to make sure it's freely flowing in its casing, because if something were to happen to that switch, it could theoretically affect the water level, and then that would turn it could make it think that the water level is low when it's really not, and then that would turn the filter pump off, and then when the filter pump turns off, everything else turns off. So I guess the only way we can really do this is turn the filter pump on. I'm going to turn it to auto. It's going to get a little loud, but now you can see everything's operating. So this is the menu where you select the program you want to use. There are really two options here. Well, there's 6 options, but really 2 that I recommend using. The first one is Program 5. What Program 5 is it is a combination of programs 1 through 4. It basically runs programs 1 through 4 in order, and I think gives the nicest variation of water feature effects. So there was a lot of time spent programming that. It makes the different jets dance around, and it raises the water levels. It's a program. So 5 would be, I think, the default option. The other option I know you put on sometimes is the music. What the music does is through this audio panel and the audio running in from the concierge building, the pumps will vary their frequency according to the audio. There's no way to automatically shift them back and forth, so really it's something the concierge does, where they can put it at music mode a certain time of day and then maybe change it back to Program 5. But these are essentially the automatic programs that you can use right here. This part, all the rest of this is just information only. You actually can't change any more settings from here. This is just telling you information. And what we can see actually is that all of the pumps now, this program's actually irrelevant at the moment because we have all of the pumps set to manual heights. The reason we have them set to manual heights is because of the consistently cold and windy temperatures. I think the concierge just decided, in a decision I agree with, to keep it on low constantly, just because even with that wind meter, sometimes if it's really cold and gets really windy, you can still get a little bit of spray and it freezes, and it's just, I think everyone's been more comfortable at this time of year keeping it on low constantly. So the way you would alter that though is you go to pump controls. I'm just going to go through these different menus here. Pump controls, and here you can see, here is where you would change it back and forth between manual and auto. Okay, so I could change it or turn it. So now it's on auto. So now it would actually run the program with the different levels going up and down. Now the wind meter, like Carlos explained, will limit what it can do under auto, and it will keep it on its lowest settings. But there's still more potential on auto for there to be some water that escapes the fountain, and that's why we recommend, just for this time of year, keeping it, unless it's a nicer day, keeping it on auto. When it's on auto, you don't have anything else really to do there. It's just, it'll run with the program. But let's change it back to manual. And then you can choose high, medium, or low on manual. So we've got right now set all of them to manual and low. The next function for this is going to be the clock, the time clock, display pump time clock. So we have two different time settings right now. One of them runs from 8 a.m. to midnight, and it's set for all days of the week. And then we have a second, and you can see this one is showing as active right now from that number 1 that's highlighted. And then recently I added a second line, which is from midnight to 8 a.m. Okay, the reason we added that second line is because we were getting some really cold temperatures, and there was actually water freezing on the top of the fountain in some of those electronic valves, and that's not good if those nozzles freeze and blocks them, because you've got little motors running inside those valves out there, and if they freeze, it could potentially cause damage. So we decided, just for right now, this was maybe a week or two ago when it got really cold, we've got it now set to run both, basically 24/7, the jets, okay? Now, if the water's not expected to get below freezing, you could clear this row. Just hit clear there, and that will turn this entire row off, so it's only going to run from 8 a.m. to midnight in that case. Okay, but I haven't looked at the forecast this week. I don't know if there's temperatures expected to get below freezing, but I'll just keep that on for now. It uses a little more energy, of course, running it overnight, but I think you're safer that way, running it constantly in this coldest month of the year. But when it starts to get warmer and you don't have the risk of freezing, you could just deactivate this line by hitting the clear button, and then it will only run from the top line. If on the topic of freezing weather, if the fountain is ever expected to, if the weather is ever expected to be below freezing for 3 days in a row, where the temperature is going to stay below freezing without getting above 32 degrees for any point, then you really need to consider fully winterizing the fountain, draining it, shutting it down. Because if it's, even with the fountain running, if it's freezing for 3 days in a row, you could have a situation where the pipes freeze underground and the freeze gets that low, and then you could have, really damage these pumps and equipment in here and wind up with a costly repair. So it's just a good idea to keep an eye on the forecast and make sure we don't get weather like that very often, okay? We're not up in the north, but we probably have at some point in the past had temperatures where it's...
Unfortunately, the frost line for Georgia, for metro Atlanta, is not very deep. It's like maybe a foot, something like a foot deep. And most of these pipes are well below a foot deep. They're way down there, so for the most part, they're not going to freeze anyway. But still, moving water won't freeze.
Okay, similar to the filter pump time clock. Like Carlos mentioned earlier, we have the filter pump set to run 24/7. That's our recommendation, is to keep the fountain constantly clean. It doesn't use very much power. It doesn't make any noise or a scene out there. So you might as well keep that thing running. You know, it turns. You can see it turns off for 5 minutes. Just have a little break in the middle of the night, but it's. And if you want to change any of these times, by the way, all you do is you just hit the button, and then you can change the number, and it's set to the military time, 24-hour time clock. The center nozzle full spray, we have that off right now. I'll probably come back around April, May, meet with the team, the concierge team again, and just test it out, turn it on, see, make sure we're on the same page as far as when we want it to run and shoot off. But for the time being, there's just no point in having that on. It would cause too many issues in this weather. And if the wind triggers the first level there, if it's even just 5 miles an hour windy, it won't shoot off, which is good for the people at Kona Grill, because a little bit of wind can move that water a long way. Okay. The filter pump is okay. Lighting controls. Lighting controls, I really, unless you have some reason you really want to change the time clock, there's not too much to mess with. There is the option to change it to manual mode and choose exactly which color you want. I took some photos here the other day for our website, and the photographer said, "Hey, can you make the fountain just blue right now?" So you can do that. If there's an event you want it to be one color, that's a holiday color or something, that's fine. But we typically, and you can choose the color here. Other than that, I just leave it on auto mode. This
right here on the left is also a touchscreen panel for lighting controls. Don't touch that. Deal with the main lighting. If you're going to change lighting controls, do it with a bigger touchscreen. Don't touch this one at all.
Yeah, this one's fragile. We actually broke one of those when we were.
The third one here.
Yeah, so.
Someone crossed wires on one of them, and then the second one, someone tried to pull it out. Don't touch it. Just don't touch it.
Okay, and then we've got the time clock for lighting. Very similar. It's set for 5 p.m. to 12:30 a.m. Very easy to change if you want to adjust that at all. So the second row was just something I did one day. I turned it on from 7 to 8 in the morning. It's not on now, but if you wanted it to run for a second time period, you just turn it on all the days. But right now, yeah, it's set to run from 5 p.m. to 12:30 a.m. And you got your water level monitor, which will tell you if the fill valve is going. And you can actually see this here anyway too. If the water level gets low and the fill valve starts to go, it'll say fill. Or it will say if the water gets too low, it'll say low level cutoff and shut it off. That should not happen though, because once again, what happens is that bobber in the fill manifold, if it, or behind the brass plate, if it gets low, it'll turn on that solenoid over there and pump water into the fountain. And then the wind meter, this just shows you windy is the highest level of wind, and it will keep all the pumps, their motor drives on low.
And the first stage, does it say breezy?
The first stage says breezy, yeah. It'll say breezy when it gets moderate wind, and then it can only go up to medium level, and then windy, the highest level, it will keep the pumps on its lowest level, which actually isn't even relevant now because we have them all set to manual low anyway.
And the blue lights show what means that they're on. If the pumps were running.
Yeah, that shows the program. Okay, and then we're going to turn this on right now. That'll be the last step. All of these switches up here. Okay. Wait. Don't confuse this manual and auto with the one on here. This manual and auto on the touchscreen, what it means is manual is bypassing the program to change the different levels and all that. Manual and auto up here, what this means, if you turn one to manual, it'll run regardless of the time clock. It'll run 24/7. Whereas auto means it will run according to the time clock schedule. So manual, no time clock. Auto, yes with the time clock. We've got all the time clocks set how we want to, including right now setting these pumps to run 24/7 anyway, but we're just going to go ahead and turn them all to auto.
all ramping up from 0 to 60 hertz. And then they'll actually come down because it's low height.
If there was any reason you manually wanted to add water to the fountain, which you should not want to do, but you could actually turn this.
It turns on slow and
Yeah,
down.
it'll kick that little water. It'll actually start filling it up with water.
You see this variable frequency drives at 38 hertz. That's the low height is 38. The medium height will be somewhere close to 50, between 48